I learned to fish from my brother. He loved to fish, and so did I. My family had this fishing cabin, and it's isolated. You can only get there by boat. One of the times I was down there, my life changed forever. At 2 o'clock in the morning, apparently I must have rolled out of my bunk bed. All I remember is I hit the floor real hard on my back, and I knew instantly that I was paralyzed. I remember laying on the floor and I could barely breathe because my diaphragm was paralyzed. I remember telling my buddy, I said, "You know, George, I think I'm dying." Paula and Brooke, my youngest daughter, flew down to the hospital, and the neurosurgeon came out and told Paula, "Your husband is going to live, but he will be totally, completely paralyzed from his neck down for the rest of his life." And I remember the scripture, Proverbs 19:21, that says, "Many are the plans in a man's heart, but God is God's purpose that prevails." And at that time I realized that my future plans were crushed. God obviously had other plans for me. When I was going through my therapy, I often thought of the book of Job. And I related to Job because I remembered how he suffered so much. Job had been talking to God throughout the entire book, saying, "Why did you let me live? Why was I ever born?" And God said to him, "You have no right to ask me questions. I will ask you questions." I realized that I had no right to question God because I was doing the same thing. Why did this happen? Why did I break my neck? And I realized that it was for God's purpose, and it turned out as the days progressed that it was. There was a man, we called him Big John. He would come in and help me get undressed and help me at night. And he was a Christian, but he was a troubled man. It was almost like he had a demon within him. He would get very agitated for no reason and talk to himself. And Paula and I spent a lot of moments talking to him, counseling him about his faith. The day before we left, John came into my room and he said, very emotionally, he said, "I just want you to know that you've changed my life." And at the time, I just couldn't understand it because I didn't think I'd done that much. But then I realized it wasn't me, it was God. And God was using me for his purpose. And that's when it really hit me, okay, this is why I was injured. Every time I would go in the hospital, people would come into my room, and I had a platform. People listened to me because here I was in a wheelchair, and here I was in the hospital, and yet I was witnessing to them. I was telling them how happy I was. Right now I'm witnessing to one of my caregivers. She doesn't seem to be real responsive, but I'm not going to quit. And so I'm just one of these people who's just passionate about witnessing, and I look forward to some of the new caregivers. I realize that I have the gift of evangelism. For some reason I always have, and fortunately I've been able to utilize my gifts. And everyone has a gift, and I just encourage everyone to try to find out what your gifts are and try to use that gift to further God's kingdom, especially during trials, because when we're under trials is when we're stressed the most. But that's when our spiritual gifts can come through and serve the Lord. And this is my goal, that God will say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." in many ways, I'm glad I broke my neck, because I've been able to make such a difference. So as a result of my injury, I'm a much better man than I was